Hey, thanks for joining me today. Lori Goldman on For the Sake of the Argument. My guest today was Rima Mohammed, one of the co founders of the People's Coalition. She had a lot to say, and I agreed with quite a lot of it. They've made some endorsements. We talked about that. They endorsed the current Lieutenant Governor, Garland Gilchrist, for Secretary of State. I like Garland. Don't know how I feel about that. I don't like switching races. And they endorsed, oh my God, don't get old. Anyway, you'll have to watch the whole thing to find out. But I hope you follow me and check out For the Sake of the Argument. Tell your friends too. There's some interesting things. I make a lot of mistakes. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think that makes it a little more interesting. And since I don't even know what I don't know, I ask a lot of questions. So if you're interested in knowing more and hearing other people's opinions and different points of view, which I think we all need to hear, please join us again on all social media platforms on For the Sake of the Argument. Have a great day. Welcome to For the Sake of the Argument, Rima Mohammed. You are one of the founders of the People's Coalition. And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what the People's Coalition is and what kind of work you do and what your goals are for this election year.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
So the People's Coalition really came during a pivotal time when, especially what we saw in November 2024, when I saw very clearly the number of disengaged voters, communities that felt unheard, and we saw the aftermath of that election, especially when Vice President Harris at the time didn't get elected and we ended up getting Trump. So it came out of urgency. It came out of a time where I saw if we don't bring these disengaged voters, these communities, especially marginalized communities, back and keep them engaged in the political process, that we're going to lose, especially when it comes to Democrats, especially when it comes to progressives. So in January 2025, myself and co-founder Erica Lightcan started the People's Coalition to center marginalized communities, to center their voices, but keep them engaged and bring them back to the political process.
How do you do that? I think that's the biggest question that all of us have. How do you initially get people that are disengaged, engaged in the process, caring about voting, and how do you keep them there? What have you found that works?
You have to be grassroots. You have to be connected to those communities personally, but within other people within the coalition. You cannot be an outsider trying to come in. And that's what I found out, the reality, especially being Muslim, especially being Palestinian. We would have people saying, oh, we want to talk to you from the party. And you can't do that without actually doing the grassroots works. So what the People's Coalition did is that we started with town halls. We started to center the voices of marginalized and underrepresented groups. One of our town halls with the LGBTQ community, where we had electeds come and actually listen to what these communities are feeling at that time when gender affirming care was being, eliminated from some of these big institutions. And when people feel heard and they feel that they're part of the process and we are centering their voices, this is when you engage the community. It is not always during election time because that's what usually happens. And I've seen this time and time again where we have candidates that come around only around election times, elected officials only around election season. And communities like this feel that they're being taken advantage of. So we are trying to do the work grassroots, and then through the process, we bring them in with voter education, voter involvement, and now more and more during election time.
And giving them a voice, because electeds like to talk more than they like to listen, in my experience.
Yes.
Giving them a voice so they can be heard.
Yes.
And they can express where they're at and what they need, I think is a very valuable thing to do. So the People's Coalition has endorsed a number of candidates, including Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, who's running for Secretary of State, and Ellie Savitt, who is one of the candidates for Attorney General. Will the People's Coalition endorse for the Senate and governor's race, or are there any other endorsements coming up? And I want to know, why did you choose to endorse Garland and Ellie?
The People's Coalition is endorsing. We already endorsed, as you said, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist, as well as County Prosecutor Ellie Savitt. The reason why we endorse them, because they have a record of truly, and again, our organization's really centering marginalized and underrepresented communities. And we truly believe that they have done the work to protect these communities, to be their voices, to uplift their voices, to center any action around these communities. And that was the reason, we have a whole process and we have a committee, but that was the reason why we chose those candidates over other candidates that are in that race. When it comes to the U.S. Senate, we have endorsed Abdul Sayed for U.S. Senate. And again, it was the same process, looking at, what is the track record of these candidates, especially when it comes to equity, when it comes to really, really focusing on the needs of marginalized and underrepresented communities. And then for other races, I know that there's the convention races that are coming up. We have endorsed in some of the university boards. We already endorsed the incumbents for the state Board of Education. For the university boards, we've endorsed Amir Meklet for University of Michigan Regent. We've endorsed Sylvia Santana for Michigan State University, and other candidates as well.
How about the governor's race? You going to endorse there?
That we still haven't. We paused. So right now our focus is really on convention, but we are going to evaluate the governor race, because there was a lot of changes at that time when we were accepting applications for the governor race. So we are going to look at that after, maybe even during the convention, but after the MDP convention.
I got you. And I hate to be a fly in the ointment, but did it trouble anybody that Garland, whom I love, and I think he's an amazing lieutenant governor, jumped out of the governor's race and into the Secretary of State's race?
Yes, I think especially what I heard on the ground, because, I've talked to many different people and communities. It was a surprise with certain communities. They were really supporting him for governor. I don't know what we're going to see as far as the impact of that change, but they are definitely supporting him for Secretary of State. But for the governor race, what ended up happening, what I've heard, is that it took away people's choices when it came to the governor race. But we'll see. I don't know what the impact will be when it comes to the current candidates that are in the race right now. But we'll see, and we'll go through that process.
You're also a member of the Ann Arbor Board of Education. What kind of work do you do on the board, and why is it important to everyday Michiganders? Tell us what that's like.
Just to give you my background, I am a pharmacist. I am a professor at University of Michigan. When I first decided to run in 2022, people thought I was crazy. They're like, why do you want to be on the school board? And I truly believe that my skills as a pharmacist, as a researcher, really can bring the need that needed to be at that time, especially post-COVID. It was important for us to have someone who is research-based, looking at evidence, looking at the data. So the reason why I ran is because, first of all, I think my background will be helpful, especially in addressing the inequities that happened post-COVID. But also, I am also a Palestinian. I'm Arab American. I am the first Arab American elected to that board, and it was important to have representation on that board to make sure that we also look at Arab American and Muslim issues. But the biggest things that I've been focusing on has been addressing the inequities of Ann Arbor Public Schools, also the budget. I know that we've gone through a budget crisis and we still are getting out of that and looking and seeing the inefficiencies that are in our schools and how do we make things more efficient. And of course, support our teachers because it is hard. Not a lot of people are going into the field of education. And I'm seeing, just like with pharmacy, we are losing more and more pharmacists in the field. We are losing more and more teachers in the field. So how do we get them back, but also work with state legislators to make sure that we really support this workforce?
It's shocking to me since the creation of an Ann Arbor School Board, you were the first Arab American to be elected to that board. And you know what? As a privileged white person, I lose sight. We don't think about it. We don't think about who's missing from the table. And I think it's really important that we start doing that. Myself, I'll just speak for myself. Given your experience as an elected official and an organizer, what direction do you think the Democratic Party broadly needs to go in 26 and 28? And what issues should they be focused on? And I ask this question a lot to a lot of people. Sometimes I get some bullshit answers. Sometimes people hit the nail on the head, but this is the question of the century. And I hope the Democrats are listening.
I've done a lot of reflection and observation. And the reality is we have a lot of work to do. The party is still, especially leadership, they're trying, but they're not getting really to the real issues. First of all, I was actually, someone reached out to me about my thoughts about the DNC, and now they want to put a plan out for grassroots planning to reach out to communities on the ground. And I told them, that's great, but that should have happened after Kamala lost. You're doing this now. It may be too late to get to these communities. We have been telling you that you needed to do that on day one after that November election. And I've been seeing it. I've been very involved, not just with the People's Coalition, but I'm involved in every level of the party, from the county. I'm on the executive board. I'm one of the vice chairs for the Congressional District 6. I'm an MDP at-large officer. So I've been involved in all these levels just to see what is really happening on the ground. And I was involved to again, help the party to get to that place, is that we really need to go on the ground, listen to what people are feeling, go into marginalized communities and see why did they not show up during the November 2024 election? Why did people stay home? We really need to investigate that. That is the most critical, and it has to happen immediately, and I don't think that is happening right now. And that is why the People's Coalition is doing the work, because we want to help the party. We want to make sure that these people actually stay engaged and vote and actually feel that they're part of the process. And honestly, I'm going to say it. The biggest issue right now is what is happening internationally, what is happening in Iran, what is happening in Israel and in Gaza and now in Lebanon. Especially, I was talking to the chair of the party, Curtis, the other day. I said, you have the largest Lebanese community here in Michigan, and you have not said one word to these communities that are losing family members in Lebanon. Those are the actions that matter right now to people. They want to feel heard.
What did Curtis say?
He said he did say a statement about Iran, but that is not enough. We really have to reach out to these communities that are based in Michigan. And maybe, I don't know, again, I don't have the numbers, but some of these people stayed home, and they may stay home. We are not engaging with these voters, with Black communities right now, who are frustrated, who did vote. And I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Black community, but I've heard the frustration is that they did vote and they got Trump, and they're frustrated. We need to hear them out. We need to uplift and center their voices. I do not believe that is happening. I feel that a lot of the focus on the Democratic Party is about messaging, and honestly, that's superficial. It's not about just messaging. It's about people feeling connected to the party and feel that they belong in the party than being outsiders. So that is my recommendation. And really, they do need to address what's happening internationally, especially for a state like Michigan, where you have people from both communities, Israeli, Palestinians, you have Iranians, you have Lebanese. We really have to address this head on and really center the discussion around this, because if we don't, if we keep ignoring it, like we have been ignoring, honestly, I think we're going to end up losing a lot of major elections.
I agree. I spend too much time watching reels at night when I should be sleeping. And the reels that I'm really obsessed with now are these airline pilots that talk about how a pilot in these small planes, when they lose control at a certain point, they can't get control back. It's beyond the pale. It's too late, and they crash. And I feel like our country, everyone was asleep, even the ones that had good intentions, and we've lost control, and we are now hurtling toward the ground for a fiery crash, and there's nothing that can be done. Even if the whole Trump administration disappeared and we put good people in, there is nothing to be done now with this war in Iran. And I am surprised by how many people I know that I think are common sense people with big hearts are happy that we've gone on both sides to war with Iran, as if we're going to right something by doing this. We're ill-prepared. We are we've lost lives, American lives, Iranian lives, innocent lives. And this is no longer just a Democrat versus Republican issue. On that note, before I start crying again, tell me what your view of the current fissure between progressives and moderates in the Democratic Party means. I mean, I've never seen, and I've only been involved in this morass of politics for 10 years, but I've never seen anything like it. And even the fissure between progressives.
I want to reframe things in a different way. So there's definitely the tension. But what it truly is, if you look at the core of the issue, what I've observed is really the corporate Dems, the billionaires, those that are taking money from corporations, from special interest groups, versus the working class. That's the true issue. And it's not even about Republican or Democrat anymore. It was interesting. I saw this interesting documentary. It was a short documentary about, and I don't know where I saw it. I think Perfect Union had this on Instagram, where they talked about Trump voters that voted for Mamdani and why. And I was so confused. I was listening to this, like listening to these Trump voters, these MAGA voters talking about this. And when they reflected on it, it was truly about the working class and the rich, the billionaires, the people who only listen to corporations, to these special interest groups. And people are struggling. So when I see these arguments all the time between progressives, between, the moderate Dems and the progressives, between the leftists, really the core of the issue is not, it's just like, again, it's this push and pull about, their core issues, what's important to them. But what the core of the issue is really between the working class and the needs of people versus corporations. And that's how I'm seeing it. And that's what I try to frame with people when they're having these arguments, is that what is really the issue about? Is it about you just being right? Or is it deeper than that? What is the messaging? Is it just that, you just don't like the moderate Dems? Or you don't like the perspective of the progressive when it comes to those issues like Israel, Palestine, or, other things that have come up. So I try to reframe it to say, well, where is this coming from? Where is this tension coming from? And I truly believe it is about affordability. It's about people just wanting to live. It's about people trying to find housing. It's about people trying to pay their loans. And then the other divide that I'm seeing is between, and I'm going to say it's between the young and the old, because the Gen Z generation, I have two of them. They're still young. They're not in college yet. I worry about their future.
Rightly so.
People are not finding jobs. They're graduating with 4-year degrees. And, as a school board member, I'm thinking about the future of these high schoolers that are coming out to graduate. That is the problem, too, that I'm seeing, is that there is a generational divide as well. So I try to look at, and I see these arguments all the time through social media, even in person, between the moderate Dems and the progressives. But really, we have to look at the core issues, which is, what is really happening is not really a party thing.
That's right. And ad nauseum, I tell people, I'm from Downriver E-Course. I keep in touch with a lot of people. A lot of them don't agree with me, but we still have communication. And a lot of the people I grew up with in E-Course that had great jobs at the steel mill are struggling, but they still support the idea that people can become billionaires. So they focus on the fact that we're trying to take away the aspirations to become a wealthy, wealthy person, endlessly wealthy. And that's not it. Because you know what? Until the needs of the working class are met, then no one will succeed. And our world will just be destroyed. So when you can't put food on the table, a roof over your house, and I sell real estate, every day I'm challenged to try to find housing, rental, if they can even afford to buy a house. You can buy a shithole now for $200,000 in a place you don't want to live, and with a furnace that's 100 years old, a roof that's failing, and that's $200,000. And it's 800 or 700 square feet. So this is just getting worse and worse and worse. I have no problem with Democrats calling out against people they disagree with on the left, the right, the middle. Don't care. We can all have our own views, but stop with the purity tests.
Yes.
Let people speak their mind, decide to go where you go, but, keep an open mind about where people are going. So on that note, when we feel doom and gloom in our political world, our world in general, what gives you hope?
The work. I mean, we have to do the work. We have to, and I truly believe the U.S. is beautiful because of how diverse we are, how from race, ethnicity to opinions. That's what makes us so beautiful. Let's center the work to truly bring people together. And the only way that you can do it is really, really listening to people, hearing them out, their perspective, but trying to find common ground. And I truly believe that we are moving that direction. I hope that the party really does see that. And I think from both sides, Republican or Democrats, we really have to focus on the core issues. And that includes really focusing on the working class, making things affordable, uplifting the voices of marginalized and underrepresented groups. Because we saw with Trump, those are the most impacted right now when it comes to the Trump administration. So I do feel that there is a path forward. People are moving that way. We just got to get organized. But also that, I went to No King's Day and saw how people are engaged. We just need to bring more marginalized communities in that. I'm seeing more and more show up compared to the first time that we did No King's protests. But we need to, people are engaged and ready to do the work. We just need to direct them in what work we need to do. So I do have a lot of hope that there is people that want to be involved and engaged and really help the community as a whole.
Speaking of No Kings, one of the best signs I saw was, if Melania doesn't have to live with Trump, why do we? Thought that was brilliant.
I love it.
You're headquartered in Ann Arbor. What's the best part of working and organizing in Ann Arbor?
Ann Arbor is unique that it is liberal, mostly Dems. I mean, no, it's all really Dems. So organizing in this space, we don't have to deal with the Republican, part of it. But what's interesting is that it's easier to organize for core issues, especially because I feel like with Ann Arbor, there is a lot of focus on equity work. There's a lot of focus on marginalized communities where you don't see it in other communities. And what's interesting, what we have done, yes, our headquarters is in Ann Arbor, but over the past few months, we did a people power tour. We were able to go throughout the state and we got to see other communities. I remember we went to the Black Summit in Benton Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most eye-opening experience.
In what way?
Just hearing, I remember meeting Trenton, who is also a school board member there, and just hearing the issues that they have in Benton Harbor and seeing the amount of inequities that is happening in that area and in that region. But seeing how engaged that community was, I mean, it was a very well-attended event. And hearing the issues of the Black community, and their issues are very different than what we're seeing in Ann Arbor, for example. So that's the hard thing about living in Ann Arbor and Washington County. We are in a bubble. But through these tours, we were able to talk to people on the ground. Bay City has their own issues. We went to Macomb County, and just seeing how amazing and strong these Democrats are in Macomb County.
Getting stronger all the time.
It is an amazing, amazing group. And that's the hard thing is like, again, in Washington County, we do have a strong Democratic base, but I have not seen the fight that I've seen in Macomb County. Those are true Democratic fighters. And that's what was very eye-opening about our People Power Tours. We got to see that, and that we truly in Washington County are in a bubble.
In your opinion, who's a Michigan political figure or organizer that deserves more attention?
That's a hard one because I love a lot of them, but I am going to uplift someone that I look up to, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib.
Mm-hmm.
She is someone that, especially being a Palestinian and feeling unseen for the longest time and seeing, especially after October 7th, I mean, she was vocal about our community for a long, long time, her serving as the only Palestinian American in Congress. But why I looked up to her is that I saw how her courage. It is very hard, and we're seeing it even within our electeds, to have the courage to say what needs to be said. And her courage really is infectious, and I look up to her because of that.
She gets a lot of hate for saying what she says.
And it's hard. It is. It's hard because that's the hardest. Courage is probably the biggest thing that I think all electeds need to have, or anybody in any public space, because you have to have the courage to say the right things sometimes that maybe people do not want to hear. And sometimes you don't get it right. Maybe you say something that really does affect people.
Then you have to own it.
Exactly. You have to own it. And so that's something that I would say if there's one person that I had to pick. I mean, there's so many other people that I really, really appreciate and I've learned from, and I apply to my organizing work. But I do believe that Rashida's courage is what gives hope. And I think, again, more people need to do that.
No kidding. I think that's the number one thing missing from most electeds in our country. So what's the best and the worst part of being an organizer to you?
The best part is meeting amazing people who want to stay engaged, meeting different communities, hearing their issues, but also what they feel proud of, especially within their communities. The hard part is the different opinions. As you talked about earlier, even within the Democratic Party, you have all these opinions. You're going to see that within organizing as well. So, how I try to manage that is just staying focused on the core issues and values of the organization and focusing on that, but also hear people out because that's the hard thing is organizing because one thing during the People's Power Tour is we ended up partnering with many different organizations throughout the tour, from indivisible groups to activist groups, and they're very different types of groups, but you there is different avenues and groups and opinions, but you have to also respect the work that they're doing. So I think that's difficult, but it's doable.
What can people do to support the People's Coalition?
We would love to partner up with different organizations. We would love to hold more town halls, especially post the convention. Definitely, help bringing people out to the next call of action is the Michigan Democratic Party convention on April 19th. But also, follow us if you want to be engaged, be part of our coalition. Our website is ourpeoplescoalition.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, but we love the collaborative nature of our work, and we want to collaborate with communities, but also organizations.
Rima Mohammed, co-founder of the People's Coalition, thanks so much for being here today on For the Sake of the Argument.
Thank you so much for having me.